We must be careful with our words and our speech this week. Or you could not and break things. That's also an option. The malefics are very powerful this week, and so insofar as you want to disrupt and destroy and break things, words are going to be very powerful to that end. But we might have to come back and reevaluate the value system that brought us to a point of disruption. My name is Zamboni. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to learn about astrology, you can go to zambonifunk.com. If you want a reading, you can do the same thing, zambonifunk.com. There's also super dope music there. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about what I mean by we must be careful with our speech. So this week, Mercury is moving from Scorpio and into Sagittarius. Now, this is going to put a little bit of distance between Mercury and Mars, who have been hanging out together for a number of weeks at this point. I've been delineating Mercury and Mars together as being very good for Mars, especially for the idea of finding a target, aiming at it, shooting at it. Right? Mars in Scorpio is very good for that kind of thing. Mercury, I've been sort of talking about coaching and strategy and like all of the thinky stuff. What I hadn't really thought of is how uncomfortable that was going to be for Mercury. So Mercury has actually been very much disrupted by Mars's presence there. Mars, let's remember, is a malefic. Malefics are the ones who bring discomfort and problems to your life and this kind of thing. So Mercury things have been very problematic, to be sure. But so now Mercury is going to get a little bit of space from Mars. And so that can be kind of cute, right? We like to see that. Now, Mercury moving into Sagittarius, that is Mercury moving into detriment or exile. That is to say that Mercury will be as far away from home as possible. Mercury is at home in Gemini, which is opposite to Sagittarius. And so Mercury in Sagittarius is in a bit of an uncomfortable position. This is not Mercury's favorite place to be. And also we can notice that Mercury in Sagittarius is immediately going to oppose Uranus in Gemini. So Uranus's job is to disrupt things, breakups, breakdowns, breakthroughs, break free. All of that sort of stuff I typically associate with Uranus. Uranus in Gemini is going to be very good for innovation, especially around communications and things like that. But So the thing about this is that Mercury is slowing down at this point, right? So we're going to see this opposition to Uranus and Gemini, and we get a little bit of space from that Mars. Also, Mars in Scorpio this week is making a trine to Jupiter in Cancer and to Saturn in Pisces. So that is both malefics hanging out there with Jupiter, whose job is to say yes to things. So Jupiter is saying yes to malefic things, to the things that bring about discomfort and problems and things that don't necessarily feel very good. Now, sometimes in the best cases, we can notice that doing uncomfortable things is the path to prosperity. That is the way that we become better as people in general, is by getting up and doing the damn thing, even though you don't feel like doing it, right? And so this is going to be really good for doing things that are especially emotionally uncomfortable or something like that, right? Get in there, get underneath the skin and do the damn thing. But this is also going to be super malefic. So this is going to want to create fights. This is going to want to maybe poison the well in some kind of way. If we think about Saturn, the malefic in the water, poisoning the well, or like getting down underneath the surface of things and then finding that the whole thing is more problematic than you thought it was, and it's going to require more demolition and destruction than you had hoped in order to make the thing better. Like, all of that becomes a possibility here, right? So there is something here that really wants to disrupt and destroy things. Then we add this Mercury opposite Uranus situation to things, and so Uranus in Gemini especially is very quick with it. Uranus wants to break things immediately. Move fast and break things is big Uranus and Gemini kind of energy, right? So Mercury moving into Sagittarius, making that opposition to Uranus, definitely looks like it wants to break stuff and be kind of off the cuff with it. You know what I mean? Uranus is associated with chaos and with surprises. Unexpected things show up with Uranus a lot. So this idea of like shooting from the hip, we're not really it's not the same as being as disciplined and zeroed in as Mercury and Mars in Scorpio was going to be. Mercury in Sagittarius is going to be kind of flippant with it, you know what I mean? Just like out here doing whatever seems right, feels right, that kind of thing. And so that looks like it wants to be super disruptive, and Mercury is slowing down here, right? So whenever Mercury is slowing down, then Mercury is going to be a little less effective than would be otherwise. And then also Mercury is in exile or detriment, so already Mercury is going to be a little bit less effective than we would expect from any other position. Then, and let's remember that Mercury is the communication planet, so Mercury is going to be the one who wants to talk, think, listen, understand, bridge the gap in whatever kind of way. That's going to be our Mercury, right? So going to have a little bit more trouble doing those things because Mercury is in Sagittarius and because Mercury is moving slowly. And an opposition to Uranus means that there's going to be some kind of unexpected bullshit going on. Then pretty soon, Mercury is going to station retrograde and move back, and we're going to go through all of this another time and reevaluate, redo, reimagine all of the stuff that's going on right now. So, especially when it comes to communications and all this kind of thing. So, this looks like a moment where big feelings are likely to show up here. Big feelings that are potentially malefic, that are potential. The one thing about Mars in Scorpio, and the sun is there in Scorpio also, the sun is there in Scorpio square to Pluto in Aquarius, and the moon's going to come through and carry the light in between the sun and Pluto right at the moment that your Mercury is moving into Gemini. So this looks like something that so Scorpio is often associated with grudges or vengeance in some kind of way, right? Like it remembers the thing that happened and has been brooding about it this whole time and is ready to fuck something up now as a result of all of this intermediate waiting time, right? So Sun and Mars are there in Scorpio, so they're gonna feel that feeling, right? And then Sun square to Pluto is gonna be interfacing with the deepest fear in some kind of way. Sun square to Pluto looks like fear of being dethroned, fear of a lack of sovereignty or something like that, right? It might show up as like some kind of feeling of worthlessness or something like that, right? Like the self, the sun, the self, the source, the light, the thing that shines out in the world is distorted by the horror of Pluto in Aquarius, especially like the fear of technology or the thing that exists outside of what is immediately well understood, right? Pluto's like going to be that underworld hellish kind of space, right? It's not necessary, by hell I don't necessarily mean the thing that is most tormented, but I do mean the thing that is least understood and that is down beneath the depths and that is terrifying because it's so dark and poorly understood down there. So all of that stuff coming to bear on the sun's capacity for autonomy. The sun in Scorpio, I like the sun in Scorpio. Maybe I like the sun in Scorpio because I have the sun in Scorpio. I have a shout out to all my Scorpio people. We got birthdays this month. Shout out to you. But maybe that's the reason why I like it, but also the sun in Scorpio is pretty steadfast and likes doing the sun things. The sun is pretty well capable of doing sun things in this position, but with that square to Pluto, there's a fear there that might come through and that might distort one's capacity to shine out and be who you really are. So that at the same time that Mercury is opposing Uranus, it looks like coming, like talking out the side of your neck on some wild shit. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody comes at you and says something, especially if they say something that like actually hits the mark, they insult you in some kind of way that you can relate to. Ooh, look out for that kind of thing. And, because the malefics are so powerful at this time, and because we know that we're going to have to come back and review all of this, and maybe, like once you've said the thing, there's no taking that back. So make sure that the fights that you engage in at this time are the fights that are worthwhile. There's gonna be a desire to break things, to move fast and break things, and to be malefic with it. Make sure that you mean it, because the consequences look like they want to be pretty big. Things do get broken this week. So be careful with your own heart and be careful with the hearts of those who are most intimately close to you. Check out ZamboniFunk.com.